it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater, and welcome to another episode of Her Success Story. Today's a content episode, and I want to welcome all our new listeners as well as our subscribers. If you have not yet subscribed to Her Success Story, please remember to do so. We drop into your inbox every Monday morning. So today, I'm going to actually talk to you about how, for me, everything comes full circle. And I don't think I'm alone here. As a business owner, and a brand. So I'm going to share a little bit more about this. Somebody recently asked me about why the Slater Success branding always has circles in it. And my immediate response was, don't you see, everything comes full circle. It led into a conversation, and I thought that as the teaching points got unfolded in the conversation, is shocking how I never actually saw this from the outside in until I was in this conversation. So why is the circles important to me? Well, let me take you back a little bit in history. The circles were the original brand of Slater Success Coaching, SSC, when it started and was originally even being designed in 2007 for our launch in January of 2008. Many of you have heard that prior to that, I had a printing company called Slater Graphics. The circle was still evident in Slater Graphics. It was part of our original brand. So how do things come full circle? Business, life, what comes around goes around. If you look at your business, if you look at your relationships, start thinking about what has come from way back and still is present, or what was way back and shows back around. Here's some interesting examples. I was talking to a colleague the other day, and I said, what does it mean to you that everything comes full circle? She said, you know what, Ivy? Never burn a bridge because it comes back around. I said, tell me more. She said, well, when she had a job for many, many years, very successful woman. And she said, as I launched my business, and she's been in business now for 5 years, she goes, I still have opportunities and relationships that show up with opportunities for all the years that I had an employment situation that are still showing up in my business today, 5 years later. And that's true for what goes on in my business in our 11th year. Opportunities consistently show up from old relationships. So it comes full circle. Really, something kind of hysterical happened, and this just happened last night. In the launch of the book back in February, I reached out to my entire community to see who wanted to help me share the word out. One of my very, very early clients was very excited to share it out and shared it to her community and came back to me just a couple of weeks ago. She goes, there's somebody who I want to connect you to. You have an enormous amount in common. Have a conversation with her. I had this opportunity to speak to this woman last night who is absolutely amazing. And as we shared our backgrounds, it just so happened she was an enormously successful woman in her own right in her early career. When things started changing, her father enticed her to go to work in his printing company. And although she was incredibly successful, the first thing he gave her was a broom. He goes, you don't know anybody here. The way to learn the people in the plant is to go sweep it. You are going to be hearing more from her in future podcast interviews because she has a great story and great words of wisdom on leadership. But be that as it may, two women who changed their course of action in their 20s, completely different careers, who ended up in the printing industry at similar times. How we navigated it and how in 2019 we're connected to one another. I might have been a printer over 10 years ago. I'm still a printer. right? It's still a part of myself. It's still a part of my story, my heritage, what formed me to be. How does that come full circle? By being connected to her, she's going to be another guest on the podcast. And she goes, oh, do I have resources for people who want to be on your show, who are going to have great leadership insight? Very, very successful businesswomen from around the country. Both of our husbands walked in the door. We jumped off the phone, ready for dinner in both homes with a next plan of action to keep the conversation going. How things come full circle. The other thing that has come full circle for me is my entire dance background. And this is really fascinating. When I got started in business, and especially when I got started in Slater Success, I never discussed I was a dancer. I very much hid it, avoided the conversation, didn't want to bring it to light. It was something like, I was a dancer. I had a degree in dance. People shouldn't know that if I'm going to be a business coach. They shouldn't know that, I did a degree in dance, a degree in communications. And on the communications, more on the television and production side than on the truly communicating with people side. Like, people shouldn't know that. It doesn't bode well for my future. Interestingly enough, one of the early attorneys that hired me in my first couple of years in business, we had a bunch of conversations, and she kept saying, oh, this is an investment. I know, this is looking good, but I'm concerned. And we stayed in the sales process for quite a while. Why is this important? When she did say yes, my first question to her is, I'm going to ask you something. She said, sure, I assume you're going to ask me a lot of things. I said, what brought you to the yes? And she said, you know what, Ivy? What brought me to the yes is when I found out that you were a dancer. I said, excuse me? You've got to be kidding. Because she asked me point blank in these conversations, and one of them, she goes, what did you major in school? What are your degrees? What are your qualifications? And I said, I don't lie. Now I have to fess up. I actually have a degree in dance and a degree in communications. And she goes, and she couldn't care less about the communications degree. And she asked me about the dance degree. And I had put my hand on my head. I'm shaking my head. I said, well, there goes this potential client. And actually, there came this potential client. And her words to me were, Ivy, I danced as a kid, and I remember looking up to those big girls, and I remember when the dancing got tough and they might have been on point and their toes bled and their muscles hurt, they still showed up in class every day. It never mattered. And I said, that's what dancing is about. And she goes, that's the coach I want in my business. The woman that's going to show up when it might not all be a sunny day. That's who I'm hiring. And it struck me all the times I buried who I was as a dancer. Can I stand on this platform? Well, it took me many, many years later to realize I can write a book. And I could write a book and actually on the cover have toe shoes with a business suit. I could write a book and talk about from the bar to the boardroom, and the bar not being the bar I might have hung out at in college, BAR, but the bar I stood at in college, BARRE, and how it has come full circle. So the wild thing about it is the day of the launch, out of the different messages I've got and received through the various streams of social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, the most meaningful message I received was from my favorite and most meaningful college dance teacher, professor, who had a huge impact on my life. And he congratulated me on the book launch and for honoring my background. And I said, when I stood in your class at 20 years old, at 18, 19, 20, and 21 years old, I could have never pictured myself where I am today and what I'm doing today. Yet it's come full circle. So I encourage you to pay attention to your life, pay attention to the details, pay attention to what comes full circle. Take this tip from my colleague. Don't burn your bridges. Embrace your relationships. Keep in touch. Even when things get tough, be the lady, be the gentleman. Own your manners, be the bigger person, the greater businesswoman, the greater businessman. Because life and business does come full circle. Thanks for joining me on Her Success Story. Remember, subscribe, join us, let it come to your inbox. You don't have to come searching for us. Leave us a note. Let me know what you think about this episode, other guests, and what you want to hear next. See you next time.